Hello everyone, I am Miserluke, and today I'll be showing you the best 3-speed gearboxes in the vintage story, going over the pros and cons of each of these designs, and then doing a build tutorial for each one, timestamps in the description. And I'll also discuss some broader mechanical design considerations later in the video, and why you probably don't actually need a 3-speed gearbox, but if you do, how to hook it up properly and make sure you get the best out of it. So, I've got 4 designs here, which I consider to be the only designs you'd ever really need, where you could make some minor variations of them. But this is really only actually 2 designs, and I'll get into that later. But starting with this one. This is, in my opinion, the best option. I call it the premium model. It has a couple good pros to it. It has a ordered gearbox straight in the middle. It uses the least fat out of any of these designs, so if you're constrained by that, this is your best option. Now it does use 4 of these large wooden gears, which makes it very expensive for boards and stuff like that. But I think it's good, it's nice and simple and elegant, and it's got a lot of input-output options. You see all of these logs here are the output options. Moving on, this one here is the economy model. It is the cheapest and most compact 3-speed gearbox that I think is possible to make in the game. Yeah, I think just unequivocally. It's the best if you're worried about cost and you want to make it small. The downsides are that you see the transmissions are kind of spread out, one there, one there, one there, for the clutches. So your best side to access it is probably here. You can reach all 3 of them. But it's not as simple and elegant as this one, where they're all right in front of you in order. Moving on now to the couple middle options. Here we've got the Plus model. I call it eco-friendly because it uses less logs. But this one, it has a ordered gearbox, just like this one, but it uses only 2 of these large gears, which makes it substantially cheaper in terms of resin and wood, but it's a lot more expensive in fat, because you've got a lot more gears going on. And then if you want to get the next cheapest while still having your clutches in a good spot, there's this one. I call it the free with ads model. A little bit smaller than that one, a little bit cheaper, has a couple less axles, couple less gears, and you get these here. They're not in order, it goes medium, high, low speed, but I still think it's worth it if you just want this but slightly cheaper. So let's now go into building each of these. In each of these chests, I've got the resources it takes to build each of these. So, starting now with my personal favorite, I've got the raw resources at the top here, and then the crafted components at the bottom. So if you want to make all of these components here, you need all of these resources here. So you see, these components are pretty expensive when it comes down to it. Alrighty, to go ahead and build this one, we're going to start with placing the 3 transmissions, like so. Then all of the clutches can go in front of them. Now this defines the side you're going to interact it with, and then you have to pick an input and an output side. Replicating this one, I like the input on top, so I'll put it on the left side here. I believe I'll need that. 2 gears like so. Axle, 2 gears, gear. These are picky, and you've got to have a lock place to be able to place it on a freestanding axle, which is really annoying. This one should just work out of the box. And easy to forget these. And we're done. That's the whole build. This one is super quick and easy. The fact that it uses these large gears so much makes it nice and easy. It's compact. And then you have, as you can see on this one, 6 total same speed inputs and 6 same speed outputs. And then what I call a high speed input and a low speed output, which I'll discuss more about that later. But this is the gearbox. You can put up to 6 input windmills or water wheels in on the sides here, and then you can have up to 6 output shafts come off of these, and then if you want one that's slower, it can come off the bottom underneath that big gear. That is the premium model. Now for the economy model, the cheap and compact one. Here's all the resources you'll need. again with the crafting resources here, and then the final products that have been made right here at the bottom. Alright, going to go make this one now. We'll start with this large gear, and then right over here we'll go the other large gear. We'll put transmissions here and here, and then clutches here and here. Then these gears, break that hay, and then we'll have the last transmission right up here. And then we'll need to give you a block. We'll do that, that, and that. And now we're done. We've got our 3 clutches, the gears. Now here is our input gear. Just like with that last one, you have 2 same speed inputs, 1 high speed input, 2 same speed outputs, and then 1 low speed output if you put it underneath this gear here. So a lot less input-output slots on this one, but substantially cheaper and more compact, and that's why you would want this one. And then yeah, you can interact with it from here. If for some reason you prefer this clutch lower, you can just kind of reverse the way this thing is done. You put the transmission here, you put the complex gears over here, you put the axle there, and then a single gear here. And you can move this one down, if for whatever reason you want to do that. Another alternative config is to remove all of these guys. And then put them here. So that if you want to be able to like access this from below, like put it partly embedded in your ceiling, this way you also have access to your 3 clutches, like so. Now it gets wider, obviously, 1 block wider than it was before, but this is another way to get good access to the 3 clutches. Going now to build the plus model. Here's all the resources. Again, the raw resources up here, and then all the crafted components. We'll start with the triple transmission stack that we had on the first one. All 3 clutches here. And then again, you get, just like with this one here, you get to pick which side you want to be your input and your output side. I will do the left side as the input side, just for consistency between them. Which means I need to go build up a little tower here. Here's your output side. Put my gears here, gear, block, gear. Connect these out, put a block in the middle, and then gear, and gear. And that is this one made. Again, your 3 clutches, which are in order. Low, medium, and high speed. And then if you look at this one, you'll see that we're doing a lot of what I would call angled gear coat to replicate the efficiency of this one. All of these angled gears here are just replicating the effect of having a large wooden gear on each of these middle sides. Which is why this one and that one are very homologous. They're almost identical. It's just, how do you deal with routing this middle run over to there? Alright, now for the free with ads model, which is really just a slightly more compact and cheaper version of this one, but with a less optimized interface. Here's what it will take to craft all these components, then here's all of the components. We'll start with the output side gear. We'll put a transmission, a gear. We'll then put the input side gear, a transmission. Then start hooking these up. And just like that, we have the high and the low speed routes done. and then this one here is the hard part. Alright, now that I've cleared the weather, we can finish hooking this all up. We'll go ahead and put all of our clutches down, just get them out of my inventory. And then the block placement order for this next part gets kind of tough, so forgive me for that. You've got to do this to get that axle straight. This one, make sure that it goes across horizontally and that it doesn't try to tap into this one. If it does tap into that, you've got problems. And then gear below, and then gear on the inside. Connects up that side of it. Axle, connection block, axle, gear, axle, you probably need a block, gear, and gear. If you're wondering why I'm using hay, it's because it breaks the quickest, I think, out of anything. And here's this one done. Here is your input gear. Now, unlike previous input gears that have 2 inputs at least and then a high-speed input, this one, the high-speed input gets blocked by this one. If you want to avoid that and still have this model, you can shift this transmission clutch over to here, and then put a gear here, an axle here, and then do more small gear cope in this block right here, and that block there, to reconnect with that. I just didn't bother with that. I'm willing to sacrifice this because this is an inferior model as far as like arrangement, but you're going for low cost here. So if you want your gearbox, your transmissions all in the same plane right in front of you, and you don't mind their order or arrangement, this is the cheapest you can make it as far as I'm aware. So that is this one. 2 inputs, 2 outputs, and then 1 low speed output. Alright, now that all of the individual build tutorials are done, I'm going to go ahead and talk more conceptually about how 3-speed gearboxes work, how to use them, how to make the most of your input outputs, then how you might actually sync these up with some actual energy input devices. Now, normally, the way torque works is that typically, like the amount of torque you'll get off of a windmill rotor is about the amount of torque you need to be spinning a thing. Now, if you have a windmill like so, and you also have a quern, this is normally the amount of torque you want to have on your quern. Like, yes, you can gear it slower, or you can gear it faster, but like this just works. So normally you want to have your inputs and outputs more or less the same like rate, because you're working with a 5-to-1 multiplier here when you go from a large to a small gear, or vice versa. So for instance, if you use a windmill, bring it down with an angled gear, and then put it in with an angled gear to the side of this, then you can take angled gears off the side of these, run them to your devices, and they'll spin at about the right speed with the medium setting. Meanwhile though, if you take a small to small, put it in the top of this, and then take your outputs out of the sides, what's going to happen is you've multiplied it by 5 even on the medium setting. So you'd have to run at low speed just to get a 1-to-1 gear ratio, which is fine if you want to do that. If you want to be able to go turbo mode, that's the way that you would do it. If you want to be able to spin like a helve hammer or a quern at 25 times speed, that's how you do it. You put your input devices in here at the top, multiply by 5, and then the high speed multiplies by 5 again, and then you take it out of here, and you've bingo bango. You've got what you want, which is probably the best way to use the 3-speed, to be honest, because the very low setting, like you very rarely want to spin anything at 1/5 the speed. Like maybe if you're trying to run a lot of stuff off of a very low wind speed, then that's what you would need, because if you had it on medium setting, it would just all stall out. But at that point, put more transmissions and clutches in, disconnect your stuff. You don't need... If you're having like 3 helve hammers, 2 querns, and a pulverizer running off of a very low wind speed, put through slow speed on this, yes, you'll have the torque to run it, but the speed's going to be so glacially slow it's not going to be useful. So very rarely do I find a low speed setting to be useful, unless you've already upped the torque or upped the speed on it to begin with. giving you regular, fast, and turbo mode. So that's a bit about on input output. Then again, also, if you have like a multi windmill facility where you have something like this, bear in mind I think you'll get interference now with the latest update, and they won't spin as good as just one of them. But if you have something like this, then you're already gearing down the speed, which means that just to maintain the speed, you're going to have to put the vertical shaft that comes off of this into the top of these gears, into the top input. Because if you were to then put it in the side input, what you've done is this takes the speed down a notch, and then putting it in here, you keep it that slow speed if you take out from here. So generally, whatever gearing thing you have up top, if you go into a large gear, you'll want to go into the top of a large gear here. If you go into a small angled gear, you'll want to go into an angled gear on the side. Otherwise, you're just giving up range that your transmission can do. If you have multiple of these and you need to combine them somehow, what you can do, and it starts to get expensive in terms of large gears, but if you need multiple of these kind of things to input into this, then what you can do is you can just bring the axle down, put it into a large gear, which will then re-up the speed when you take a small gear off the side. Notice how this spins a lot faster. And then put this into the side. So you can have one of these go into the top, and then all the rest go into large gears that then go small to small on the side. You can use the new spur gears for stuff like this, but from my limited experience trying with them, they seem to be quite hard to get to work easily, because all of the stuff that they spin off the side has to go in the same direction. You can't take an axle off of this side, for instance. So you end up with something that's very dimensionally capped like this, and that just doesn't make for easy building in a lot of cases. And these things are expensive. They take a lot of sticks compared to angled gears. Now obviously a lot less than something like a big old wooden gear, but is how it is. So that's kind of how you connect it on this side. And then again, for outputs, like if you're putting into the side, you should take out of the side, and that will give you the 1-to-1 ratio that I talked about as being preferred for most things, from health hammers to querns to pulverizers. If you're going for the high speed, same thing. You take off of the side but put into the top. And then if for some reason you want one of your outputs to be a lot slower, you can take it off the bottom. So if, like, let's say querns, you're like, okay, I don't want my querns to be taking too much power away while I'm running my health hammers or pulverizers or something, you could take a quern, you could take an output off the bottom, stick it into your quern. Heck, you could put your quern directly underneath this. Because your quern, normally you just leave stuff in there and then come back when it's done. Or come back usually like 2 days after it's done because you forgot about it. That's my experience anyway. So you can come back. Your quern doesn't matter as much if it's slowed down, in my opinion. Especially if you got like an auto quern and you're just like putting 2000 bauxite in there and you'll get back to it when it's done. So that's kind of how to use the input-output structure. And that's why I really like this guy, because 6 inputs and outputs at the same speed, plus the high and the high speed input, low speed output. If you use the high speed input and the low speed output, it'll be the same as if you're just using the side ones, but then the sides are at different ratios from your main input-output ramp, so keep that in mind. But I do like this one because you get 3 times the outputs and inputs if you only care about the side ones, compared to this one, which only has the 2 and the 2. So that's why this one's nice if you can afford it. And I'll be honest, if you're at the point of making a 3-speed gearbox, if you're able to invest nearly, let's look at the cheap one. If you're able to invest like 2.5 stacks of sticks, 2 stacks of boards, some logs, and all of this fat and resin, you can probably afford to go up to the next size up and get the improved one. And heck, this one even costs less fat than even the cheap one here. So that's why I like this one. Gives you the most flexibility. I like its visual appearance too. It's got the best order for the clutches, and then also the most input-output possibilities. So these two are kind of the bread and butter of, hey, if you know that you need a 3-speed gearbox early game, and you are spending a lot of resources on other mechanical stuff where you just don't have many to begin with, this one is your cheapest option. This one's your premium option if you want something expensive. And then these two are kind of eh. I made them largely to give kind of more direct comparisons to some of the other 3-speed gearboxes out there, because these two are kind of just like one of the recent ones that got posted, but better in terms of costing less. And then, so this one I think costs the same or slightly more, but is ordered. This one costs less, but is disordered, just like that one was. So I kind of got into the 3-speed gearbox game when I saw a video about 2 years ago from someone who made one, and I'm like, oh, that's so bad. His was just like this one, but slightly worse. He put some extra spacing for some reason, then had all the clutches in really bad spots. But yeah, this one's actually been published before. Someone else put it on Reddit, I think, a little bit after I came up with mine, but before I posted it, because I'm not the best at YouTube scheduling. This one's similar to the old one, and then these two are similar to that new one, but they have top input, bottom output, or vice versa, honestly. You'd have to reverse the high, medium, low signs, though. Whereas his was bottom, input, and output. And I like to go with the top input, because very frequently that's where your wind will be coming from. And with the bottom output, you can more easily bring shafts along the floor level or bring them underground. So that's why I kind of like that order. But it's kind of easy enough just to shift the shaft up or down by a little bit if you want to. And then, just because of who I am, and because it wouldn't be complete without it, in preparation for this video, I made a spreadsheet to calculate the costs and try and really compare these things on a more visual level than just items in a chest. There's 3 separate tables here. This one is the crafting cost for each of these items, where really there's only 5 things that make up all mechanical components, at least the gearbox-related ones. Sticks, boards, logs, fat, and resin. And then 3 tools, the saw, hammer, and chisel. And right here I've got an axle costs half a log, half a fat, and 2.5 of each of these durability. It's a half because the recipe makes 2 axles. Angled gear costs this much, large gear costs this much, and because the large gear contains an axle, all of the axle costs get added into the rest of it, and on throughout these components. And then down here is the number of each of these components that each of these cost, which is a matrix that's used to then compare each of these with the table up here to calculate the cost of each of these. So you see here the same costs that show up in those chests in the earlier part of the video, now including durability. And here, green is better, red is worse. You can see that the economy model, it just blows everything else out of the water. It's the cheapest in every category, except for second cheapest in logs and fat, which the premium slightly beats because it uses a lot more of the large gears, which cost less fat and less logs compared to the angle gears. And then the plus and free with ads are kind of more in the middle. Notice that the fat and resin cost skyrockets for these two. Fat in particular, but also resin, at least compared to the economy. Because, again, they use a lot more angled gears than either the premium or the economy. And then I've also got the 2 gearboxes made by Chumber and Bratwurst, previous videos on YouTube, showing that Chumber is very similar to the economy, but just slightly worse and less efficient. Meanwhile, Bratwurst is comparable to the plus or the free with ads, but slightly more expensive than the free with ads, I believe, but not quite as nice as the plus. And then also at the bottom here, I've got whether or not the clutches are ordered. 1 means they are in a line and ordered. 2 means they are in a line but disordered. 3 means they're not in a line and disordered. 4 means they are kind of chaotic but all accessible. And then 5 means they are chaotic and not in any way good accessible. I don't know what he was cooking. And then how many outputs you've got and inputs. How many of the fast in, slow outputs you've got, which is 1 for all of them except for the free with ads. And then the outputs is 6 for the premium, 2 for all the rest. So that's why I like these two. All of the soft stuff you get best with the premium, as well as a low fat cost, but all the other costs are higher. And again, you can look at the durability, like the saw durability is a lot more it costs for this one. But the economy does best in everything, slightly worse at the soft things, and then the other designs really only make sense depending on how you care about balancing the soft things with the cost. So that's kind of, I think, all that remains to be said about gearboxes. I'm sure I could talk a lot longer about them, but as far as 3-speeds go, this is kind of the bulk of the information that one could ever find useful, and probably a lot more. But if people want to follow up, I'm sure I can think of things to talk about, because I really enjoy the mechanical power side of Story. It's a lot of fun, a lot of cool stuff you can do, and plenty of room for optimization and efficiency. Alright, that is it for this tutorial plus commentary. I hope you all enjoyed, got useful things out of it. Happy to answer questions, and if people want a world download or access to the spreadsheet, I can see about how to make that possible. But thank you all, and I hope to see you again in another video.